the main structure that is present in your skills or in your driving. So lucky for us, all of this is commanded by one same structure, and this is our nervous system. Let me first of all say it. We are not going to make a neuroscience class. We are not going to talk neuroanatomy, but I believe it is important for you to understand and to know some of these structures so that you can understand the process, how your emotions and how all of this has an influence on your day-to-day and your decisions and how your behavior. So a quick overview about our nervous system. The nervous system is our motor, our major control that not also you can see that it's subdivided in other structures, but it has a function of regulating, communicating, controlling some of these structures and give outputs and inputs for the rest of the body. So nervous system. Nervous system is divided into main sections: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The brain nervous system, the central nervous system, is subdivided in brain and in spinal cord. The central nervous system is present in learning process, memory. You'll see more ahead some of the main functions of the central nervous system. Sorry. And brain and the spinal cord are part of this central nervous system and are protected by bone, the skull and the vertebra, and each other has also its functions. The spinal cord, we'll see more ahead. It links the inputs and the outputs of the brain throughout your body. We'll see some more straight ahead. The peripheral nervous system. So this is the rest. So it's the innervation or the communication throughout your body. It can be your somatic nervous system or the autonomic. We'll see more ahead. What does this mean? And the autonomic is subdivided in sympathetic and parasympathetic. Let's go ahead. So here we have a brain. Not to be much exhaustive in the info or the information. These are the main structures that will be important for you to understand that it's all one whole. We have two hemispheres. In each hemisphere we have 4 lobes, and these structures are repeated in each hemisphere. We have the frontal lobe. I'm sorry, the frontal lobe with higher decisions, with language, with problem solving, mapping, personality. It is what defines us as human beings. The latest development on the human development. We have the temporal lobe, and the temporal lobe is responsible for the auditory cortex. Not also, but in the recognition of faces, learning and memory also, the perception, the auditory perception. We have the parietal. The parietal, it's more like an interpretation of the world. and with the outputs tries to figure out an image of what receives. The occipital lobe, it's probably more easy to explain. It has our primary visual area and processes vision. And these other structures that are in here, the cerebellum, it's quite important for our balance, our posture, our proprioception. You know where your limbs are, where your hand when you're raising your hand. So cerebellum has an important function also. Your stem, we'll see straight ahead, more further actually, that has some autonomic functions, breath, heart rate, sleep balance. It has a function that will be more addressed with the autonomic system more ahead. And the limbic system, we cannot see the limbic system because the limbic system is inside. It has structures like hippocampus and amygdala. Amygdala is the fear center, and it's very important for you to regulate your emotion and the creation of new memories also. Okay. Just a brief overview about the somatic and the autonomic, only to understand the next slide. So the somatic, we're not going to talk much about this, but the somatic has the voluntary body movements. So when you want to drink a sip of water, you have that conscious movement, and you erase and move your arm to get your cup. So it has the control of the skeletal muscles. It has one neuron chain. Probably we won't speak about this now. And the neurotransmitter is a acetylcholine. So a bit difficult from the Portuguese to the English. The autonomic, as the name itself says it, it's the automatic. It's what happens without you knowing that it's happening. It controls the involuntary movements, innervates the smooth muscle, the cardiac muscles, and the glands, and has two neuron chains. There is two neurotransmitters that are present, the acetylcholine and norepinephrine. It will vary if we are talking about the sympathetic or the parasympathetic, but more straight ahead we'll address to it. Let me check only how much time we have. Okay, so without repeating what we said, but it's important for you to recognize this slide. The sympathetic, you probably already heard it with Professor Soares. It's the response, the fight or flight response. Okay, our body tries to respond to a certain challenge, a certain stimulus. It increases our respiration, our heart, our blood glucoses, and you can also make an analogy like this. It's when you're fleeing from a tiger or a lion, right? So you have blood glucoses because your muscles need more energy for you to run, right? Your heart needs to beat more, so you need more blood to be pumped on. The dilated pupils, also important because you need more light. You need to see better. You need to see the tiger. The analogy is all very, very accurate. the neurotransmitter. In here, we have the norepinephrine and the acetylcholine. They are presented like an stimulator, and acetylcholine also is present on the parasympathetic. You'll see in the next slide, but I would like you to pay attention for this one. The thoracic, they are the nerves. They are mostly activated, or they are activated in the sympathetic. And right here in the parasympathetic, it's the rest and digest. It's the it's when we want to be relaxed and appreciate our meal. This is the system that is present. These two systems are non-going systems. What do I mean about this? Unless you have a stimulus, you have the case of the tiger, you have to run, your organism has to put yourself in a situation that you have to respond in immediate. These antagonists happen all the time, but they are functional, okay? And it's the opposite of the increased respiratory rate, heart rate, blood sugar. This is your body asking you to turn down a little bit, okay? The stem and the spinal cord, you'll see more ahead that they are the nerves that are activated in the parasympathetic, but we'll see this more ahead. Okay. I'm not going to speak more of this slide. I only want you to pay attention to this. The parasympathetic, as we saw before, as certain nerves that are on the stem and on the sacral. Okay. The sympathetic, they are along the thoracic. You will understand further why this is important. This one that you'll see, it's a cranial. It's the number 10, the nerve number 10 that innervates all of these organs: your heart, your lungs, your liver, your bowel. So you'll understand, and again here, your bladder and your genitals. Okay. So this is a resume, a conclusion of how these structures are important. So how can we put all of this that we understood before in action? So we can make a simple question: how does your brain respond to a challenge? So we have the automatic. Okay, am I safe? It's the immediate response. So it's the stem, as you'll see, and you saw before. It's part of the parasympathetic. The thinking part. What does this mean? So your frontal cortex tries to understand and give an answer, a cognitive answer for what is presented. And the emotional one, what am I feeling? So the limbic system, as I presented you before, it has the fear center. Okay, so you'll need to understand that all of this work together, and all of this gives you an answer for your behavior, for your emotional. So this is quite important. I believe that with the current time, there is one stress that is not in here reflected, that is the social one. and we are struggling through one that is becoming very important for the rest of our lives. So, but to give you a picture, the physiological stress, we mean illness, we mean pain, we mean the temperature, hot, cold. The occupational stress, more of your, consider a promotion, your statue, how do you feel on your job, okay? The domestic stress, marriage, divorce, money, kids, and the psychological stress. There can be anxiety, stress also, depression. So what we want to see with this, and the social one is present, as I said before, because these are the main influencers of our emotional regulation. So if we can tolerate and if we can cope with this stressors, this that you can see, the self-management, the self-awareness, the and the responsible decision, the social awareness, and so on, that you can observe. Well, this is the beginning for you to regulate your emotions, and as how can I say, once you deal with one better, the next one will be better also. Okay. And how can we improve these skills? Well, we have lots of suggestions. Some of them already have been spoken in the previous webinar with Emiliano. We have the drugs, absolutely, but drugs as a limited space and time. You have activities like yoga, tai chi, and similar. Meditation. There are lots of forms of meditation. We have the Vipassana, we have mindfulness, we have the Nidra, but we have others. What is important to retain in meditation, it's not the one that is better. It can be one for me can be different from you, so you'll have to find one form of meditation that is adapts to you and what you are seeking, your individual needs. Breathing techniques, the example, the diaphragmatic breathing techniques. It's also an important thing to have in mind. And cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy, it's as a psychologist, we have the idea, and one of our interventions, it's to try to how can I say, you have a belief, a negative belief, and we try to turn that belief into a good one, okay, with some techniques. It's one way. Some people feel good about this, but there are effectively other ways that can make you feel also good. We'll speak more ahead. And now for a bit of yoga and meditation introduction. Emiliano presented me at the beginning, but let me tell you that I am also a yoga teacher. You might have seen it in my presentation. I work with athletes, and I work with public in general. And I believe that yoga is a tool for everyone. It can be um, a way of life. It can be a philosophy. It can be lots of things. But I imagine that for athletes, there is a specific need to use yoga. But yoga can be what you want, but it still has this three main cornerstones. And what are they? The physical one, the postures, they are named asanas. Asanas, we want not also for the movement of the yogi or of the athlete. We want the alignment. We want to gain something about the physical movement, because your body needs it, right? The first yogis implemented the asanas after the meditation. First of all, there was the meditation, and if you sit yourself in meditation for a long while, you will need to move yourself. The breathing techniques, we call them pranayamas. Pranayamas, they are quite a few. We have pranayamas that can relax your mind. We have pranayamas that can promote some heat on your body, and we can adapt for each time of the day, in the morning, by night, to sleep better, to calm yourselves. It's one, I would say, the most important to begin for the rest of the cornerstones, for the asanas and the meditation. I cannot, probably some of you all already practice and have some contact with this, but what yoga really represents is about your consciousness, your awareness. As I said, you can have yoga for your own needs, for your own mindset. Okay, there are lots of types of yoga, and you can adapt. What we want with yoga, it's your self-improvement, your self-performance. You exceed your performance as an individual. By consciousness, your self-awareness, your physical one, you have balance, mobility, proprioception, but also with this, you can gain much other aspects, the cognitive performance, the stress response. So it's a little part of the process. To almost in the end, but I could not forget to explain you why does this happen, right? Why does yoga is so important? Why yoga relaxes? What does this mean? So one of the answers for this, it's the activation of the vagus nerve. In the beginning of the presentation, I asked you to pay attention to that nerve. Okay, you can see it right here. This nerve, lungs, and all the organs. So what happens during this breathing control? If you can deal with the breathing control, if you can domain the breathing control, you are stimulating this one, the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve will happen or will be present in the heart rate, and blood pressure decreases and the muscle relaxes. So this will improve your relaxation. okay? And the relaxation will help you to have a deep and more controlled breath. And this is a cycle. And this is one of the reasons that is important. I have to be a little bit quicker, but to pass you also some aspects of the yoga and meditation neurochemical. We have some improvement of some neurotransmitters, GABA, serotonin, BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic, the regulation of dopamine, the decrease of cortisol, and the decrease of norepinephrine. You can see on the presentation what does this mean, but it's your brain that is thinking. I would like to tell you about this program that I'm developing with the help of Emil. This is a program for I don't know if you're listening to me. This is a program that combines CrossFit and yoga. This is cross yoga, and it's a program that is being developed for adapt to the specific needs of this modality. Okay, sequence of specific asanas, breathing techniques also for these athletes, and some relaxation techniques that promote better recovery, more learning, and so many other things that I could speak more time. So for the last one, and I believe that I have a minute, we are also developing a program or a protocol for you drivers. I am challenging you right now. This is a protocol. It is baseline assessment, 7 to 10 weeks intervention, and we are evaluating physiological, cognitive, and performance parameters. I believe that will be important, and I would like to count with you, because with this we can really appreciate and have a clear notion about how our mental skills can be important for your performance and how to make a difference. Okay, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Rosana. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I have some questions here. Maybe we can start with that. The first question is about the performance coach, especially in motorsports. If you have any infos about contribution between yoga and cognitive skills.
If I have, I'm sorry, I couldn't listen the entire question.
If you have any infos about the contribution between yoga and cognitive skills.
No, at the present moment, we do not have it. That's why we want to make this protocol. There have been some studies with one type of approach, the mindful and acceptance commitment of the Gardner. I don't remember the other name. And we have other modalities, other sports that have already tried it. But still, there's a long way to go to find some conclusions about this correlation about performance and the motorsport.
I have another one here. Do you use any device, any tool to assess the autonomic nervous system?
Not yet, but we will. I believe that Emiliano will help me with that.
I can answer a little bit because
Yeah.
we normally access the autonomic nervous system by HRV, so heart rate variability, even in sessions of meditation or sessions of yoga. When we combine that with the trainings, we try to read, and normally there's in the gadgets that we use, they have these options of inserts the moments in the through the day that we are doing the meditation or yoga. And I can even send, if you guys wanted, some readings of the meditation and through to the HRV, for example, and to see it, how the autonomic nervous system can pass from sympathetic to parasympathetic in terms of when you are doing something like related with holistic approach like yoga or meditation. I have another one here, if you don't mind. What's the duration of each session of cross yoga?
It's about 10 weeks, 12 weeks. I'm sorry, 10 to 7 weeks and 12 sessions about that.
How many mindfulness sessions should be done per week, and what's the optimal duration of each session?
Well, that is quite a question, because the mindfulness, and I don't know if you attended, the person who is asking attended the previous webinar from Professor José Soares, because there are lots of people that think that they are meditating, but in fact it can be 5 minutes, it can be 10 minutes, but it has to induce you to a certain state. You can try to be 1 hour, but still you haven't found the points that your brain is really in that zone.
Do you have any experience with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and yoga?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and yoga? No. That I'm account, no, I believe no.
Can I train my learning and memory part of my brain?
I'm sorry?
Can I train my learning and memory part of my brain?
Absolutely. We can. They are nowadays. There are lots of devices. There are lots of tests. Also, Emiliano can answer this one, because they are growing a number of solutions for you to train your memory skills, your learning skills, your attention skills. So yeah.
If you allow me, there was before the neurosurgeons, the neurotherapy and things like this, all the current about neurology was regarding that we lose connections in the brain since the day that the brain is fully developed. So, and nowadays we know this is not true. Neuroplasticity is something that is happening all the time with our brain, and especially related with the chemistry of our brain. So it's perfectly, we are perfectly capable to increase the skills of our brain and to work the skills of the brain with many things that are correlated with that. Since nutrition, medication, lifestyle, in terms of balance between the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And all of this is a contribution to the brain and a contribution for the developing of the neuroplasticity of the brain. So I hope that I could answer with that. How is the acceptance of yoga strategies among the high performance athletes on your experience?
I'm sorry?
What is the acceptance of yoga strategies among high performance athletes?
Well, I believe that there is a long way to go, but with some new developments, with some new studies that have been, that I can send for Emiliano to share. And I understand, because yoga always have been seen as an holistic, and it is, but with a lack of empirical studies, right? So I believe that that is a long way to go. But there are already some studies that show us that there is a correlation, and I obviously the athletes, the high performance athletes, we have some of them that began to try and practice yoga. Some NBA
in one of the last on one of the last interviews of Cristiano Ronaldo, he just shared with everyone that he's doing yoga on a regular basis. Yeah. It's becoming very popular, and then this is for Enrique. It's a friend, and Enrique, like you said, the acceptance of yoga and in high performance athletes, it's more and more it's happening more and more as we speak, because it's they can feel really the difference in the body performance. How can you relate a specific training as CrossFit with yoga and drivers?
Well, it's not entirely the same approach. What we can see about this, and it's a different approach, is that it's a performance. The CrossFit athletes has special needs that drivers don't, or the drivers have. We can make the other way. Drivers has some cognitive and an effort that is more prevalent than a CrossFit athlete. But still, the method of trying to give the asanas, the alignments, the physical postures that are really adapted for that specific sport. That is one of the difference, but we can apply for all the other sports. The relaxation, I believe that is also similar, right? And the breathing techniques. The breathing techniques in a driver, I believe that it's will be more about controlling his own sympathetic and sympathetic and parasympathetic system, because it has a different kind of pressure. And the CrossFit athletes, sometimes they could need a different kind of breathing technique that allows it to give a more oxygenation. I'm sorry, my English has a fluctuation. The recovery is very important, because in athletes CrossFit, you need more physical recovery, right? So we can direct the pranayamas, or the techniques of the breathing techniques for them. It's different, but the main purpose of this program is to try to pass the message that yoga can be one thing per se, for its own, but it can also be a complement for many other activities, many other modalities. You can see this even on the corporate aspect. Lots of companies are implementing yoga and mindfulness on their lunchtime, on the as an activity to not also give more high quality of life for their workers, but because they have more productivity. Okay, so we can adapt yoga for
the sessions should be individual.
It can be individual, but not also. There are some people that prefer to be individual, but I believe that it can be both ways.
In a team setting, do you think group sessions can be a good strategy, or should we focus in the individual approaches? What's your experience with that?
Well, I believe that we can make it on both ways. I was telling you before that some NBA teams are they are now using yoga as a commitment and of the team, and in this you can also see other skills and other behaviors that are being promoted, but there is no right answer for each sport or for each athlete. I believe that we can see the athletes and the sports, okay, with its own needs and specialties, and give them an approach for them. It can be an individual. If there is on one team, okay, there is one individual that it's more sensitive and wants to perform and wants to try to commit to yoga, because I would like to have this opportunity to tell you something about mindfulness and about yoga and about these suggestions. This will only be a part. This will only be one gain for you. It can only change your performance if you really want to do it, if you really want to perform better, if you really accept that this is a path for your that is part of your training. Okay,
and training is basically about that, no? It's basically about believing. So yeah. I have a couple of questions more. Can yoga and Pilates should be considered similar in terms of benefits they bring to sports in general? Would one be better than the other one, or complement?
I believe they are complements. No better or worse.
Can you allow me just to answer a little bit about this?
Yeah,
because people normally associate yoga with Pilates, and yoga is very different from Pilates in terms of everything. Even the basis of that was created, and the things that it can work inside of the human body in terms of physiological path, it's completely different. In terms of anatomical suggestions, in terms of anatomical needs for performing in yoga and Pilates, they are completely different, and they basically they work through changes then in the nervous system, but in the muscular system and the breathing association, everything is complemented in a different way. And Pilates it works a lot with the answers and the stimulation of the muscles that are deeply related with posture. Yoga is nothing related with posture. It works postures, and these postures are related with breathing and in terms of autonomic and parasympathetic nervous system. So, and Pilates is not as a goal. It is not as a goal to be changing the path from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system. Pilates is a way to work the body in a more muscular way. Okay. Can you explain a little bit more about cross yoga?
Well, cross yoga, it's a program that is being developed, as I said. We cannot say that yoga is the same for, as I told you, for everyone and for every sport. So CrossFit as a way of being very particular, but they are sensitive to grow, and they are sensitive to perform better. So this program, what are the main or the cornerstones of the program? It's most of all alignments and postures that are specific for them, because they have a certain number of exercise. I believe we can call it only exercise, because there are much more in CrossFit than only exercise, and the sequence are already prepared for them. So it's not only me that can pass the message, but it's a complement for all of the watts, if you want, of the main activity of a CrossFitter. For each CrossFit, for each watt, they will have a sequence that is predefined. Okay, and that sequence, it's not only physical, adaptive, but it's also with the relaxation that is fundamental to alternate between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic is all the practice of the CrossFit. They are always on the red line, right? And that it needs to have a switch, not only for recovery, but also for learning skills, because they are athletes. They compete. They are trying to improve some certain movements. They are expecting to gain something about that. So it's still being developed, but soon will appear.
What kind of breathing technique would you recommend to improve sleep quality?
Well, we have 2 pranayamas, and I would love to explain how it works. We have we call Nadi Shodhana. The Nadi Shodhana, it's a way to alternate your nostrils, and control the amount of air in each nostril, and control the how can I say, the time of each inhale and exhale. And let me remember you from the presentation. We have in our autonomic system, the only thing in the parasympathetic that we can control, it's our breath. We cannot control our heartbeat. We cannot control our blood pressure. We cannot control our bowel movements. We cannot control nothing of that. We can only control our breath. That is why the breathing techniques can perform and can have an action in this other functions. The other one, I believe you can, the Ujjayi breath is not only used during the practice, but is also used to when you're stressed, when you're in a meeting that is trying to or you're quite fed up of being in that meeting. It's the control of the amount of air that you get through your nose and comes out from your nose. What happens in between? Your glot, the back part of your throat gets constricted, and the amount of air, it's less, and you can almost constrain the amount of air that you want to let in and let out. The exhalations will be more long than the inhalations, and with that focus and with the amount of air that you are bringing inside of your lungs, I believe that is two pranayamas or two breathing techniques to relax. If still you're not prepared for this, and this is my suggestion, start with the diaphragmatic. So inhale through your nose and visualize that that the air is going to your abdominal cavity, okay? And start to visualize this. Close your eyes and in a controlled environment. And when you exhale, you try to exhale also through your nose. The first attempts, you can do it through your mouth. And when you recoil the air, try to visualize the air coming out also from your belly. After this, we can speak about more of the air passing through your lungs, but this is a good beginning to control it.
Okay, just to finish, because we are already with a long time in this webinar. Do you use CBT with your athletes?
No, no, I don't use I don't use CBT with my athletes because first of all, it's not the moment, and I believe that CBT techniques must have some specific conditions to be applied. Probably the conditions are not the best ones. So no.
Okay. Thank you, Rosana. Thank you, everyone.
So much.
See you next Tuesday. Okay. To our next webinar.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.